Hey everybody, it is Professor Parish and welcome back to English 122 for the summer. So we are already in week 2 and this summer is going to fly by. So I want to talk about the stuff that's going to be due for this week for June 19th. So if you have not, I'm recording this on Sunday, so if you have not done the assignments for week 1, you do have your discussion forum, the reading response, and I definitely want to see the thesis and outline for your first paper. I'm probably going to look at those tonight just to check everybody's and make sure everybody's good there. So that's going to be my goal, is to look at everybody's thesis and outlines, and then I'll finish grading the discussion forum and the reading response Monday and Tuesday. So I try to, I'll do some grading usually on Sunday, and then on Monday and Tuesday I'll try to get the bulk of the grading for the week done. So with that being said, let's talk about what is due for this week's assignments. So looking at our Module 2 guide, which is right here, the lecture video I'm going to post once I've done recording this. And then as far as readings go, we're kind of touching up. I know we've gone by the fiction and short story section super fast, which this whole summer goes by very quickly. So we're going to finish up talking about just the elements of short story. But honestly, the elements of short story are going to be something that come up within poetry and within drama. So we're not done talking about setting, tone, theme, symbol, genre. We are just starting with those conversations, because these elements that are attached to short story are something that will pop up within poetry and drama and the rest of our semester. So this is just giving us a preview of them. So like we talked last week, you do have to have certain elements to create a good short story. And we have to have obviously character and plot, a consistent point of view, but you also have to have a setting. Now your setting, I feel like for me, setting is probably the element of short story that I focus on the least if I'm writing, because I feel like, for me, I don't consider setting to be incredibly important. I'm more of like a character-driven person. But some people treat setting very seriously, and setting does not have to be just a place. It can be a time, it can be a specific dimension, it can cover a lot more bases than you think. And setting has the power to change and mold characters, as you guys will see in the readings. There's lots of situations where a character is molded by their setting. So for example, in the show Orange is the New Black, it takes place in a prison, and the prison setting molds those characters and their ideals and their decisions based on where they are at. So it can be something like that. A setting can be alien or unknown, which creates a sense of isolation or desperation for a character. So in the story Wool, which is a really good sci-fi novel, in Wool, the setting is integral to the entire story. It sets up everything and helps to determine the decisions that characters make because of the setting. So it can be pretty powerful. So even though setting's not my personal cup of tea when I'm writing a story, it's not something I focus on too much, it can be a major factor in deciding the actions of characters and shaping their identities and their decision-making process. So setting's pretty important. The same thing with tone and theme. Your tone is basically the emotional setting that your story has. Is it a comedy? Is it dark? Is it dramatic? Is it sad? Is it funny? Is it romantic? That you have a tone and the style that the story takes that kind of determines a lot with how the story is presented. And then the same thing can kind of tie with symbolism. Symbolism is just extra meaning that is given to a story. So when you see the infamous Twilight cover and it has like the apple being held in the hands, that apple, there are not literal apples in Twilight, but there is a metaphor and a symbolic meaning behind that apple that's tied to like forbidden fruit, the Garden of Eden. It's tied to Christian overtones. There's lots of different things that are associated with that apple, even if it never makes an appearance in the story. So that's symbolism, right? And most stories have at least one symbolic element, if not many upon many. And then you obviously have your thematic elements, which is what is the point of the story. And every story should have a point, even if it's just to entertain someone. There should be a theme or a lesson or a moral or something to get out of the story beyond just, oh, it's a story about a guy going to his mailbox. What is that story telling, right? And so that's the thematic elements. And then genre is just the type of story it is. Is it a comedy? Is it a drama? Is it a tragedy? Is it a horror story? And so the sections of reading in these chapters go over these specific elements. So I definitely want you to check them out. They're only like 2 to 3 pages each for each section. So definitely check them out. They're going to be things that will be touched upon in our midterm and our final. So I want to make sure that you definitely read those sections and get a good handle on these elements. And then finally, if you've chose options 2 or 3 for paper 1, I definitely think you should read this section about writing about a story, which is on page 1783 to 1807. It's a nice little section that talks about how to critically analyze stories. And so if these are two options that you picked, I think these will help you, especially if you're struggling with outlining and organizing your thoughts for this first paper. But let's talk about the discussion forum, the reading response, and then the first paper being due. So the discussion forum this week is pretty straightforward. So based on, I'd like you to pick a story from 2 chapters. They can be any chapters between chapters 9 and 14, which cover short story. So first and foremost, I want to know what are the 2 stories you picked and why. Second, with each story, what is the best element of short story or fiction that it uses, and what is the least effective? So do both stories feature great characters? Does one story have awesome characters and one story has an awesome setting? Is maybe the theme not developed with one story over the other? I want to see, one, if you pick 2 stories that are similar in terms of what elements they use best and least, but also if that's not the case, what elements do these 2 stories do really well and what are they maybe lacking in? And then finally, what element of fiction do you consider, after viewing all of our chapters, to be the most important for short story and why? Now, me personally, I love characters. So for me, character is my most important element. And it's for a number of different reasons, in terms of relating to the characters you're reading about, in terms of like psychologically analyzing them, connecting them to our own lives and our own, different populations and diverse groups of people. But that's my own reasoning. I know not everybody cares as much about characters. So I want to know, what element do you consider to be the most important and why? So those are our questions for this week. So make sure you get your discussion forum post and your 4 responses in by next Sunday. As far as the paper itself, you'll see that you can submit as a Word document, which is the doc files, a rich text format if you don't have Word, or a PDF file. Now, these are the 4 formats that I will accept for a grade. Make sure that you convert your paper over to one of those 4 formats if you don't have Word, or if you're submitting from Google Docs or something. Make sure to download from Google Docs as one of these 4 formats. Now, if you go to the online orientation on your dashboard, it should help you understand how to submit and upload files. But I will go ahead and make a note. If you submit as a PDF, I will be able to look at it and give you feedback. It just won't be feedback on the actual document. I'll just write out my feedback because I can't edit a PDF. But if you send as a Word document or a rich text format file, I can edit it, and I'll show you next week what I mean by revising and things like that. So that's basically how you submit for this. You will get a chance to revise. Revisions for this first paper are going to be Sunday, July 4th, after I give you feedback. But I will make note, you must submit a draft in order to revise it. So if you don't turn anything in, it's kind of an all or nothing thing. If you turn in your draft, even if it's not perfect, even if it's just, in a decent place, you'll still get a chance to revise it. But if you don't turn this draft in, it's just a 0. You will not get a chance to revise. So make sure you submit something. Anything is better than nothing. Make sure you submit something, and that way you'll at least get a chance to revise it. Even if it's just a page, submit something. If you don't turn anything in, it's a 0, and that's 100 points lost. It is a big deterrent to your grade. I don't want you to lose those 100 points. So make sure you turn something in, okay? So that's for paper 1. And then the reading response for number 2 for this week is just to choose a story from pages 118 and 159. So either The Storm, To Build a Fire, At Jim Bridger, or A Pair of Tickets, one of those stories. And then you'll choose a second story, either A Clean, Well-Lighted Place, Barn Burning, or The Gift of the Magi, or Happy Endings. And then a third story. There's actually 4 stories that you're going to choose from here, and each question deals with one of those stories. So my goal with all these is to give you opportunities to read lots of different stories in this chapter and in these chapters and in this section about fiction. We don't get to spend a lot of time with fiction, so I definitely, for the second reading response, want to give you the opportunity to read lots of different stories and get lots of different viewpoints about them. So with the first story that you pick, which uses setting in the most interesting way and why. So all 4 of these stories are tied to setting in the first question. Which one uses it in the most interesting manner and why? With your second story, what is the overall tone? How is it effective? If it is, if it's not effective, say so. With your third story, explain the theme. Why did you choose this story? And with the final story, how does it utilize symbolism? So all four sections of stories will coincide with the question you've been given. I just want to know why and how does it use these themes and these elements in effective ways. Okay? So make sure you have a brief intro and conclusion, like just a couple sentences, and then answer those four questions, and it should be at least a page in length. So yeah, that's pretty much the assignments for this week. Like I said, I'll be going over your outline and topics today. Those of you that submit today, if you don't submit until tonight, it'll probably be tomorrow when I get back to you, just to make sure that everybody's topics for paper 1 are going to work. But just if you have any questions this week, make sure to please let me know. I will check my email Monday through Thursday from 8 to 4:30 p.m. Now, if you email me on the weekends, it's going to be few and far between, but if you emailed me throughout the week, I will get back to you pretty quickly. So if you have any questions, please let me know. But otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I will be back very soon with Module 3 for English 122. Bye.